because you end up saying that, and maybe a lot of Israelites believe what you believe. They say, you know, I'm an Israelite, but I'm also a Christian. I'm going to show you why that's not possible. And there's some things you're just going to have to think about for yourself. Let's see. This comes from Irenaeus. This comes from Ignatius. And this was around the year AD 100. Once again, that is very early. He is a disciple of John. And this is his letter to the Magnesians, chapter 10, verse 3. This is what he says. It is absurd to profess Christ and to Judaize, for Christianity did not embrace Judaism, but Judaism Christianity, that so every tongue which believeth might be gathered together to God. That's what he says. So in other words, you can't be a Christian but still Judaize. You can't be a Christian but still want to, circumcise people and keep them under the law and do this only the Sabbath and you're still a Jew. That's what the whole argument with Paul and all the rest of them were. Here's another one. This comes from AD 365. So now there's a little few hundred years later. And this comes from the Council of Laodicea. Once again, these are just Bible-believing Christians. And they wrote like 52 laws that helped them out. And this is law number 29. It says, Christians must not Judaize on the Sabbath by resting, but must work on that day, rather honoring the Lord's day. And if they can, resting then as Christians, but if they shall be found to be Judaizers, let them be anathema from Christ. That was mainly the last part that I always noticed. If they were found to be Judaizers, let them be anathema from Christ. Anathema, that means to be completely separated from Christ. So, like I said, you wanted to know about the early Bible believers, and maybe I'll address a lot of these things in another video. Are the tribes really lost? I'll address that in another video. Because if you have the tribe of Asher being found in the New Testament, and tribe of Benjamin, and all these other things, and even Paul saying that all the tribes are serving God day and night, that means all those 12 tribes must still been around. You have a great return of all 12 tribes in the Old Testament. I can show you that. So this completely contradicts. It doesn't matter if Jews from the dispersion came out from Rome into Africa. And not only that, but when it comes to Deuteronomy 28:68, these scriptures are not talking about Africans being shipped to the Americas. They're talking about Jews being shipped back to Egypt, just like it said. And we know from Roman letters, even when the Emperor Hadrian was writing, he even said that during the destruction of Jerusalem Temple in 70 AD, that hey, we loaded up a whole bunch of Jews, just about all of them, since they didn't have their temple anymore. They just loaded them all up in the ships, and they sailed them into Egypt and parts of Rome. They said that the majority of them went to Egypt, and the problem was there were so many of them that they really didn't know what to do with them. And there was a guy named Hegesippus or Hegapisus or something like that. I'll show the references at the end of this video. And he said, you know what? They would actually sell 30 of them for a penny. And he said they believed that they did this because it was like a retaliation against selling their savior for 30 pieces of silver. And these are all first century documents. This is what people are actually saying. Look at what Josephus said himself. He has spoke about it, about all these young men, thousands of them being shipped by ships, going back into Egypt. Why is it they're going by ships and they've been by land? Everybody knows who would want to cross like a huge desert to go from Jerusalem all the way into Egypt, even though they're connected, when they could just get in a boat and sail and get there. And that's what they did. These are historical facts you can look up. So that prophecy was fulfilled. Jews went to Egypt. America is not Egypt. It was Mizraim. That is the Hebrew word that the Egyptians use. That the Hebrews use. And they never said Egypt in a figurative sense ever. Just because you have something on the back of a dollar bill and you have Egyptian artifacts and the Egyptianish like stuff in our capital does not make this place Egypt. Especially if you have that versus first century documents that said, hey, a whole bunch of Romans gathered up Jews after they destroyed the temple and shipped them off in ships straight into Egypt, and no one really bought or sold them because there were so many of them that we had more than we had to deal with. So, I mean, that is history. Look this stuff up, read it, and come to a conclusion. And that's pretty much it, man. Please get back to me. And, you once were with, Israelite Church of God of Jesus Christ. Now you're not. And now you say that you're a Jew or an Israelite, yet you're a Christian. I personally think that God is pulling you closer to the faith. I pray for you every day, and you have my best interests at heart. I love you, bro. And this is my biblical argument. If I said anything wrong, please correct me. And I would love to hear a response from you. And I believe that people can learn from both our camps. Thank you, guys.